right, I'm going to call the March meeting of the Land and Zoning Standing Committee meeting to order. Proof of notification, was it properly noticed and posted? All right. We have a 21-point agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve.
Motion by Caro. Second by, I was just going to say something else, McGuire. All right. Any discussion or anything we need to move around or move up in the order? Otherwise, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Item number 4, approval of the February 6, 2023 minutes. Would someone like to make a motion to get that on the
Gentis, I
floor?
move to approve.
All right, motion by Gentis. I have a second.
Second.
Second by Carol. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. That brings us to our zoning petitions. Edgerly, is that the correct way to pronounce that? Okay. So Mike, if you want to give some background on that, and then
The background on this petition is that the applicants are going to keep the house and buildings in 5 acres and sell the remaining of the agricultural land to a neighbor.
all right, so why don't we get a motion and a second to get this on the floor for discussion?
I'll move to approve and then I just have a discussion a little bit.
Yep, okay, motion by Gentis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Carol. All right, discussion. Supervisor Gentis, you had a question?
Yeah, no, I'm not against it. It's all 3 of our petitions today are very similar, it seems like. And so this makes it easier, I guess, to make part of it residential and then keep the ag as an ag. Is that how you see that, Mike?
Correct. The land being sold off will be joining more land that the person's got zoned ag forestry.
I can't hear him.
The land that is currently being zoned or not being zoned is going to be bought by a neighbor that's already got ag forestry zone land.
Mm-hmm.
So the only question, and this is the question I've been asking to everyone who's creating smaller parcels, is if your septic were to fail, do you have another place where you'd be, do you have enough space on your property that doesn't have buildings and other things on it that you'd be able to replace your septic?
Yes.
Okay. Because that's always the concern, the smaller you get and your
Yeah.
septic fails, what do you do if you don't own any more
Right.
land? So, okay,
It's a total of 6 acres.
6 acres?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
a little more than, yeah, it says a little more than 5, I think, on here. But
Yeah, a little more than 5, but
yeah, close to 6?
yeah,
Okay.
close to 6.
All right, does anyone else have any other questions? All right, I will call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, you have your approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mike, when we get this signed, I don't know, how much do we, this back, this copy? Okay. Because you'll need it for the next meeting, right? Yeah, okay.
Is somebody in the office? Can we go and do this right away?
I have no staff in my office right now, but if you want to go to the treasurer's office.
Well, I can drop off another day to the right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, that brings us to the Cormax petition. All right, if you're going to go ahead and sit at the table, why don't we get it, motion and get it on the for discussion?
So moved.
Motion by Carol, second by McGuire. All right, would you like to give a little background?
The background on this parcel is that there will be 5 parcels after the CSM's been created. There will be 2 lots that are, I guess he's zoning up or zooming up to them. There's going to be 1 lot that's going to be less than 5 acres, and that's going to be the one that's zoned residential 2. There'll be 3 lots that are over 5 acres that will be zoned ag residential. The last lot will still stay ag forestry because it'll be 35 acres or more.
Okay. So We can do this all as one approval though, right? We don't have
Correct.
to do a separate, because it's all in one application, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Um, Does anyone have any questions? I guess I will ask the same question, is there any concern or issues with the lot sizes? Are there going to be residents on all the lots?
Lot 3 already has an existing residence
Right,
on it.
but the other,
The other ones, lot 1 and lot 2 will be built on that, Max knows for sure. Lot 4 might be sold to the person that might buy lot 1, or lot 3, I guess. That might be more just agricultural use, but yes, there's plenty of land, because lot 4 is 15 acres, so.
okay, all right. I'm keeping track of all of it. All right, does anyone have any questions? Supervisor Carroll?
Yeah, I didn't see what the acreage was for that largest lot.
This is just a CSM lot, but the remainder, Max, do you remember what the remainder was, 40 or?
About 40. And so we're not doing anything with so on, like on the map that's on the screen right now, to the south of lot 1 and lot 2, there's 40 acres.
No rezoning.
Not rezoning, no.
I didn't hear, how many potential building sites are we talking?
Lot 3 already has an existing site on it. Lot 1 and lot 2 are gonna be built residential. Lot 4 has a potential for a building lot, and then the egg forestry will still be a buildable site.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, you have your approval. Thank you. All right, that brings us to the Anderson petition. All right, so why don't we get this on the floor for discussion? Would someone entertain a motion to approve?
So move.
All right, motion by Carol. I'll second. Second by Fleming. All right, will you go ahead and give us some background?
The background on this petition is that they are going to separate out the house and the barn on the other side of the road, and then sell out the rest of the land. So the 2 acres needs to be zoned to residential.
So same question. If you're a septic, where do
Yeah, so,
you got room to expand?
yeah, so my name's Damon Anderson, and so I'm actually here on behalf of the owners that have it, which is the Phyllis Anderson Trust.
Okay.
So Tom and Mark, they are the sons. So what we did is they had a lot more acreage. There was actually, that's not on here, there was 35 acres that was sold off to the neighbor. And so it took us down to this amount. And when I say this amount, just north of lot 1 on the right-hand side there, they still owned 15 acres there. So they still own, actually where it says lot 1 there, there's 15 acres that they still own. But they're looking down the road because their mother has passed. And so my suggestion was just the fact that in case they did want to sell some more of that acreage, we went to the township asking what they would prefer. And this is how you at least have to have the 2 acres to have it for residential. And so that's where we bumped it up to more than 2 acres there. The house is separated by Red Wing Lane. So that's on the left side of the road. But we did add the barn, the shed, and then enough to do 2 acres over there. The septic that currently is there is not that old. However, there would still be enough room there to do anything if that one even failed. So initially we were going to come in and do a res ag and include all that 15, but then it wouldn't really make that much sense because the rest of that being farmland. The person next to it that just bought the 35 would like to purchase that if they want to sell it down the road. So to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, there's no reason to have it be res ag. And then down the road, if they need to sell it, come back take that back to ag and then do this to residential. So the rest of the land is still in ag forestry that they own, but it's just this parcel here,
All right.
so.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Carroll?
Yeah, I was just curious about the outbuildings, why they wanted to keep those, or if they,
Well, actually, in this case, it just so happened that the way that we have it marked out here is to be able to get to that 2 acres. There used to be, it used to be where if it was divided by a road, you could just it wasn't that tough to sell off the parcel by itself. But then we were down to about an acre there, and they prefer it to have 2 acres. And then it almost makes sense to have a little farmette type deal down the road. The one son does live there. He does intend to stay there. But at some point, I always try to look for their best interest down the road. Yeah, so that's the only reason why we had done that. Yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, you have the approval.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to Ash Creek Forest.
We've talked, is it on? Okay, now it's on. We've talked in the past, former committee and now this committee about the needs for out at Ash Creek Community Forest. And Ash Creek is, so since I've been with the county, has supported itself, meaning we've not asked for county tax dollars to do any work out there. It's been done through tree sales. And we haven't done a tree sale in a while and done management. There's been changeovers in, this is Rebecca Vasquez. She's the DNR forest ranger in Richland County.
So she took Julie's place?
No,
Oh, okay.
No, Julie is actually our new supervisor, and I took Todd Kennefick's old place.
Okay, got it.
and she does a lot of things. A lot of hers is the fire control in wildfires and things. But since there's nobody there, and I've been talking with Rebecca, what do we have? It's part of the Ash Creek community. It's a community forest, and to do anything out there as far as the forestry, tree sales, chim improvement, anything in the woods, forest, really want to involve the DNR because that's their expertise and we're supposed to. So we talked at one point about doing a tree sale and what would be needed to get it done and what needs to be done out there too. So I thought I'd have Rebecca come in and talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, because we just put a new parking lot in on the upper part,
Yeah.
and one of the discussion is doing a tree sale from that pine planting, right? It's the pine planting that's up there that there's some question on as to whether we should harvest or not harvest.
Mhm.
Mr. Carroll?
Yeah, sure. I hiked it a little bit. I'm familiar with it, but is there a current management plan for it?
It's part of our outdoor recreation plan. We have some stuff in there.
But there's also a plan through the
Forest.
community forest program.
And I have not looked at it. Do we have access to it to look at it?
Do you want to go ahead and email that out? Do you have? a
I don't
PDF
have the
of it?
copy with it. We were always co-located, so if I have a copy, I don't know where it's at. I mean, you know what I mean? It was done a number of years ago. I don't know if I have the update.
So my question was, I mean, DNR does not have an updated stewardship plan for Ash Creek Community Forest. I know Julie was previously working on one before we got cut short about 50% of our positions. They're vacant right now, so I don't know that we have a completed plan, and I don't know. I haven't seen one.
I've not seen a completed one either, so.
So that's definitely the first step. We need to do a stewardship plan of some sort.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Yep. Updated stewardship plan. According to the statutes and the private lands forestry handbook the DNR has, it can be done by the DNR forester if we have time, or it can be done by a cooperating forester for hire. If you go DNR route, I don't know as far as work planning, how soon we would be able to get that done. A cooperating forester could probably get it done by the end of this year, depending on their workload and who it was. I guess my other question was about non-commercial work. on the community forest. I mean, anywhere there is potential for timber sales, but what we should really be focusing on is improving the stands and the timber that we have, thinning out the plantation, making sure that all the trees we planted are going to survive and become quality trees. And Julie had spoken about putting funds aside for that from the like timber sales that would be established in the future, but I don't know if you guys had already planned on that or had something written up.
That's where we were kind of stuck, you know, we had a lot of changes. We had Julie was leaving and we had change in committee structure and it just kind of,
So my question is, how, do you know the balance in the Ash Creek
I
funds?
didn't check before I came up.
So that's something we would need to know, is what our balance is. My recollection is it's somewhere around $3,000. Does that sound right? $4,000? Or
No,
did we spend it on the parking lot?
parking lot,
Part of it on the parking lot?
yeah.
So it's less than that? Yeah,
It's
Oh.
closer to 1,000, 1,500,
1,500? Okay.
1,000.
Mr.
Yeah.
Carroll?
Also, even if there's an old plan, it'd be nice to have that and see where we were at that point.
Well, I know that there's stuff in our outdoor rec plan about what we'd like to do out there.
Right.
That's separate from a forestry plan, though.
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
Is there?
Okay,
a
so we're
forestry-
only working on forestry now, right?
What?
We're just gonna work on forestry, not the whole plan for the whole thing.
Correct.
Well,
And I,
that's why,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what is your name again?
Rebecca.
Rebecca, that's why she's here to talk specifically about forestry. But I think we have a bigger picture that, as far as the plan for that space overall.
right, and I can dig through the files, Steve, see if I can find it, you know, with all the move and everything,
I help them move files. There's a lot of files.
Sure.
There's a lot of files.
Okay.
but I'll look through
Yeah.
that to see if I can find it and I can put it on the shared drive, or the,
iPads.
yeah. When I locate it.
So what essentially what I'm hearing you say is that there's potential you could help us with making a new plan, but your time is probably very limited and valuable, and that we may need to seek outside assistance to get a plan done.
Depending on how immediate you want a timber sale. That's why I asked Kathy, you know, if this was just a follow-up from the conversation she's had with Julie, or if you guys were really pushing to want to do management out there right away. In terms of-
Well, I mean, I think we always would like to be proactive and get things going, but understanding that everyone's time, it has been a pretty chaotic year and a half for they moved and all the other things that are going on. But I think we're starting to get our ducks in a row, and so now would be the time to get organized and determine what we need to do to
Right.
get moving on that, which is why I think she talked to you
Yeah, and
as the
maybe,
first step.
yep. And if that's an issue, you know, I can see what we got in the account. And then,
We can't pay you to do it, right? Like you don't
No.
do it for hire. We have to do a private person if
Right.
you don't have time,
Right.
correct? Yeah.
And I mean, we could even talk about, I know Julie had started out there updating, so I don't know how many acres she got done, but I mean, you
think
could
she got
hire
quite a-
somebody to do the remainder of the acreage too, it doesn't have to be the entire thing.
okay,
I feel
But-
like because we were doing trail work as well, like mapping trails. And so in the process of doing all of that, she was out there a lot. And I don't know if while she was out there, she was also evaluating,
She was.
right?
Mhm, there
So
is- there
I
is a
feel like
parcel.
she walked all of those trails because she walked them all with GPS. So I feel like she had the opportunity and probably knows more than we might think she knows as far as. So if someone could check in with her and find out exactly what the status
Yeah.
of how far she got, so that we know what else how much more time we need to in order to get a plan. Yes, Mr. Carroll?
Is it premature to contact some forestry consultants and maybe look for quotations on doing this study?
I could maybe come up, you know, work with Rebecca and get the list of operating foresters in the area, and then just, once we know where the plan status is from Julie, what's been done, then I could,
Doesn't it make more sense to figure out what we already know, and then we know what we're going to ask a consultant to figure out? Wouldn't it make more sense to wait until we hear, like, next month? I'm assuming by
next month, she can give me
May,
an
we
idea,
would
and I
at
can,
least
she
be able to
doesn't have
find
to
out
be
what
here, but I
Julie
can,
did.
yep.
And then in May, we could determine whether we've got quite a bit of it done and it's just a little bit to get done, or whether we need to bring in
And then we can
someone.
go for request for proposals at that
Sounds
point.
good.
That would be more, I think that'd be more productive than calling up a bunch of people and saying we wanted a forestry evaluation and then finding out that it's 3/4 done.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, I wanted Rebecca here because she knows what's happened on their end. And with Julie, yeah, Julie went on maternity leave. We were in that thing stopped. Then she took another job. We moved. It's just been,
You got a new person in your office.
it's
yeah.
just, so I want to.
But I feel like we're on the other side of it now, so let's get a plan and let's get moving forward. So, okay. Does that seem reasonable? You think by May you'd be able to touch base with Julie and at least find out where she's at?
Yeah, where we
so
are.
that we can move,
Yeah.
decide how we want to move forward. And then for next time, please find the exact balance.
Yes, I will.
And then
I never thought about that. Yeah.
yeah, because then we'll know if we even have the funds. Because I have no idea how much it costs for a consultant, but probably more than we want to spend. But
Yeah.
we'll just see.
Okay.
And
Yep.
then,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was gonna ask as far as, for the non-commercial work out there, because the stewardship plan will include timber sales, but it will also include follow-up practices such as thinning the plantation, doing underplanting in the harvested areas if we need to, removal of invasives. And that, I mean, that does cost money, so setting aside money from the timber sale to go towards, timber stand improvement would be.
So
that's what
historically, we've been able to keep the money from the timber sale to maintain that property, but
And
that
that's-
has to be approved every single time, right? By the county board?
Tree sale. I don't remember the last one was, but we've always that's always been, okay, if we know about how much money we need to set aside, that comes first before any other projects out there.
Okay.
That's important.
And at any time, the county board can say, nope, we want the money for something else. And, given the financial situation, and I think Mr. Langert could attest to that, we can't guarantee that timber sale money would be earmarked to just for, I mean, I would hope so, but
Yeah, well, like I said, since I've been here, we've had two or three. So it's been 30 some years, and we've not asked for county tax levy dollars to support it.
I totally get it, but I'm just.
No, what I'm saying is
Yeah.
what I'm saying is
It's been self-sustaining.
correct,
It'd be good to keep it that way.
right.
Because now, I mean, the trails are becoming, they're labeled now, and hopefully we can get, I was gonna ask about Ash Creek Forest separately, like, are we ready to go for mowing? Do we have it figured out how we're gonna do the mowing this summer?
No, I have to,
Okay, can you, for next time, because all of a sudden it's gonna be overgrown and we're gonna.
Right.
Because last year I think we only mowed once, or was it twice? Was it
I
just
think
once?
once or twice, because, yeah.
And it could have been done more for sure.
Right.
So let's try to get on top of that this month. And be
Okay.
ready to go, because I think by end of May, June, we should be mowing.
I mean,
But for sure.
we may have to, we may have to look at,
Whatever we gotta do.
Okay.
But look at it.
Yep.
Yeah. Whether we can rent it ourselves and staff time, or if we contract it out, but let's be ready to send those contracts out then. Okay.
There's one more thing, there's, just to put on the radar, that there's been talk that Fair Recycling and Parks would eventually like to move this property to go under the Parks, quote unquote, Parks Department.
Yeah, I've heard that too, but for now, let's just leave.
Yeah,
it.
but I just wanted to say that's something, and then,
Yeah. Did you have more?
I was just gonna ask if you, had the rec plan, just so that can be added into the considerations for a stewardship plan, because that's always really important, talk about trails and
that's-
recreation going on out there.
they've updated it. And it was done by Southwest Regional.
And there's a PDF of it out there. I saw it, but it was a while. It might even be in my email somewhere, but yes, we can get you a copy.
Awesome.
Someone will get you a copy of that. Okay. Thank you for coming. We
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank you.
coming on over to the courthouse now that we're not in the same building with you guys anymore.
Yeah, it's fine. Gives me an opportunity to get over here
Out
then.
of that building. All right. Was there anything else on Ash Creek? Does anyone have any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 7, office updates.
Okay, this is, I didn't know how to put it down on the thing. Last week was the Wisconsin Land and Water Conference in the Wisconsin Dells, and I and Derek and Melissa and Steve were all there, at least for all or part of it. And every year they give out awards at the conference. And before COVID, I and my staff had nominated Melissa for Outstanding Supervisor of the Year.
Serious?
Yes.
Really?
And I wanted to let you know, I was so hoping you could have stayed. That's why I was asking if you're going to stay.
Oh,
So I would like to present that award to Melissa.
are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
Oh,
And I'll just tell you some things I said. I said you were elected to county board in 2018.
yeah.
You became a member at the land conservation at the time because you're very interested in conservation and the environment. And being a new member and not really know what was going on, at their first meeting, we were looking for somebody to serve as the supervisor rep on the Southern Area Association.
Crickets. Nobody would
But-
volunteer.
And okay, I'll do it. So Melissa volunteered to be your rep on that committee association. And then at the first Southern Area Association meeting, same thing, crickets. They're looking somebody from the Southern area as supervisor to serve on Wisconsin Land and Water Board and
Board of directors.
Board of
That was-
Directors. And I guess I'll do it, Melissa said. So she volunteered and she's been part of that since 2018
Mhm.
and contributed a very lot to that. I said she's always striving for us to do new initiatives in our department, the well study, working with aquatic invasive species and other things. And in fact, with the well testing, she went to when they had the releasing the stuff on the well swig, Southern Wisconsin. I don't remember the whole thing.
Geologic something.
Yeah.
something, yeah.
She went to those meetings and became very enthused and came back to us and she looking and say, hey, the county needs to do this. And I said she went on the radio, spoke at meetings about it, and she actually helped us get a small where people paid it for themselves, and she took the well samples up to Stevens Point. And then she just thought we should be part of a study ourselves, so she and I met with Crawford and Vernon County to set up we call DAWS, which is Driftless Area Water Study. And we had two dates set up for that. She was very much part of it. She pushed the county board to approve paying to dedicate some money for 2 sample dates. She actually the first time she manned a drop-off station, and she took all samples from all 3 counties up to there. She was instrumental in helping get the hiking, biking, and horse trails marked at the community forest. I also said she's part of the committee to hire our first county administrator. Also helped put together the county strategic plan, and she was part of the group that helped set up the new committee structure.
Did you have to say this in front of all those people?
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
No. But
A lot of people in that room. It's so huge.
Yeah.
I would have been freaking out.
I said we did our land and water plan last year, and she helped us go through it and look up, put things in there, and reviewed it and had a lot of good comments and suggestions. I also said that she's never one just to sit there. She thinks something she wants to find out more information on or bring back. She always goes and does that. So.
Oh my God. So shocked.
Yay. We deserve it. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I definitely wouldn't go that far. I am sad, but my mom's appendix ruptured last week. And so she was in the hospital and then she got released and I needed to help her get home with my dad. So I had to leave the conference. Understandable. I was sad to leave because I was actually looking forward to it, but it's the way it goes. Right? Hey. Right here, man. That's it. That's it.
So.
Oh, well, thank you. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, now I'm all emotional.
So.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
You kept a really good secret because I absolutely would not have guessed that in a million years. Wow. All right.
On the shelf.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. Well, thank you very much. I very much appreciate that you took the effort to do that. So thanks. Okay, so was that the end of the office updates?
I don't have anything unless Mike has some stuff.
Okay, so that brings us to short-term rentals. So, I sent you two documents. One was the
Mhm.
entire, yes? What?
Yeah, just yes.
Okay, so I sent you the entire DAT cap code. I think it's chapter 72 or something like that. But then I also just sent you another document that kind of summarized the parts that I thought were relevant or the most relevant to what we've been talking about. And I will just tell you that my overall reaction to what they require in order for you to be DAT cap licensed to have a short-term rental was really focused on making sure that the people who stay there are safe, that they have safe water, that they have, that they have fire alarms, that you have. So it's really all about keeping the person safe. I think and maybe the reason why there have been more of these ordinances, in my opinion, was because if you're thinking about just good neighbor policy and what, makes it be okay for the people that live around them, those are absent from the DAT cap rules. Because I didn't see any of them that really talk about being a good neighbor as far as like, don't let the cars be parked all over the road. Don't, make noise after whatever time, whatever. So that was just in looking at this again and rereading this again, that was really my thoughts. So I would curious to hear what the rest of the committee thought of the DAT cap rules.
I just have a question.
Yep.
So they have all the listing tourist, excuse me, tourist room housing and all those. Is tourist room housing taking VRBO, all the different ones we're talking about? That's what I'm confused about.
Yes. So the state refers to them as tourist rooming houses. And it's the same thing as a short-term rental, same thing.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. It's just their word, the way they don't ever say short-term rental. They use the terminology
Yeah.
tourist.
I have a license for tourist room, so yeah.
Yes.
There's no.
But it includes a whole house. It's not like because it sort of implies a tourist room, like you're just renting out rooms, but it includes that, but it also includes if you're doing the whole house or if you're doing a cabin, whatever. So, all right. Does anyone else have any thoughts on DAT caps requirements versus what we may or may not want to do?
Chair.
Mr. Kara?
Yeah. I guess my concern was, can we make sure everyone who's doing some kind of tourist room or whatever has done the DAT cap approval? And if that's the case, that goes a long way towards our concerns. But we need to find some way to make sure that's happening. And maybe that's what an ordinance would cover, that you're required to do it. And then, like you say, maybe we, as our own add-on to this, add just a few little lines about good neighbor type things.
So I think that all the ordinances that I've seen so far usually make a reference that they must also be DAT caps licensed, and then they go on to add some things, like I guess the SOC one, and which I was confused because I was looking for it under zoning, but it's under health, because their health department actually does the inspections, which I can't even imagine trying to make our health department do the inspections and do the whole processing for DAT cap. It's like they're doing DAT cap a huge favor.
Oh, they're doing it for them.
Yeah, they are, essentially. Yeah, which I thought was crazy, but.
Yep, Madam Chair.
Yeah, do you want to grab a mic, Aaron, if you want to participate today?
Yeah, I thought SOX specifically was kind of overkill for what we would be expecting.
Envisioning.
And so, like you say, all of a sudden, if you have an ordinance that elaborate, who's going to do all that?
Yeah,
So, right.
Clearly I was like, no way, no. DAT cap can take care of their own licensing,
Yes.
and then we can reference that they must be DAT cap licensed, because by state law, they have to be anyway.
Right.
I guess, yeah, I mean, I was thinking that really for all the safety concerns for people that are actually going to stay in these places, the DAT cap thing covers it all. I mean,
Right.
it's pretty thorough. But again, I didn't see anywhere where it talks about specific, like making sure they have a place for their vehicles to park and it's not on the road or in the yard or whatever. I mean, that kind of stuff is not, at least I don't think so. I think
Emergency contact.
And then emergency contacts, I think, is important. Having a local contact to respond to issues and things, I think, is a good one to add. So, anyone else want to comment on their thoughts with the DAT cap versus where we might want to? Oh, and I forgot to tell. So I asked Mr. Wendell, Corp Counsel, if he was able to be here, and he had a deposition that was going on all day today. So I did ask him to come to the April one so we can dive deeper into the legalities of what we should or shouldn't or can or cannot do in an ordinance. He was also going to look into if there's other than an ordinance, if there's a different way that we want to go about it or whatever. He was going to bring the legal parts of it to our next meeting. He was also going to answer another question that we had for him. Oh yeah, the one about the rep. So the committee rep for FSA thing. So so is there any other information that you want me to gather, or do we feel like we have a pretty good handle on, I mean, and I included more examples. I included the SOC examples in your, so that information is in your, on your iPads. I downloaded their forms. I thought their forms were something we could go back to. There was that pamphlet from, I can't remember which, it's a tri-county Waushara, Green Lake, and Marquette counties. It was a flyer that they produce, that they give out, that helps people get through the process of getting their vacation rentals approved. So I feel like we've gathered all the information, and now we just need to get some legal advice and decide for sure. I guess I'll just offer my opinion. So right now where I sit, I think that we do want to have an ordinance of some kind to make sure that we can deal with if an issue arises where someone is not being a responsible owner and they're letting things happen that shouldn't be happening. We want to have a mechanism to be able to do something about it. I'm not interested in creating a difficult process for the people who are good and responsible owners. I'm mostly interested in just making sure that we have this mechanism and we have written out what the good neighbor, let's call them good neighbor policies are. So that's just kind of where I'm at right now. So I'm thinking that we need to do something, that we should, because it doesn't matter until you have a problem and it matters, and then you don't have any ground to stand on, which I think Mr. Wendell's input will be valuable in that respect too. Oh, go ahead, Supervisor Joseph.
I assume that Mr. Wendell address people who are already doing it that aren't DAT cap, and that we grandfather them in with a certain time period.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we want to make this as easy as possible for people to comply, and as little work, not dumping a ton of work onto our understaffed zoning departments. So trying to balance all of those things while still being able to create a mechanism to do something if we need to.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
couple questions. My first one is like, if they list their property like on Airbnb, does it have to state their license right on there?
Airbnb does not require it, as far as I know.
No,
Yeah.
the state does make you, well, according to what she said, it does make you put something in your
Listing.
home that lists that you're approved by this code. So it's in there, but it's not.
The people staying there really don't care about
No,
that
they
piece.
don't.
I've seen those pieces of papers on the wall. I
Yeah.
took a picture of one when I was in Hawaii, just because I was curious what it said, and I didn't want to sit there and read it.
Okay.
But,
So it's
yeah.
supposed to be in there, but no, there's nothing on the listing like online.
I mean, I do see that there are, like in Hawaii, they all have a listing saying that their license number for Hawaii, it's on the Airbnb listing. So I don't know if they just do that, like if there's some requirement and
Must
someone in
be.
Hawaii is checking,
Yeah,
some guy in the
must be.
county is checking to see if they're,
Well, it would make easier enforcement if they had to list it on the site, because then obviously the ones that aren't listing it are potentially.
I feel like at
licensed.
some point, I think that there's going to be enough municipalities going after those rental sites. They're going to say, hey, you have to make or some requirement for some kind of license that has, or some, you know, like maybe you have to enter your license number before you can list on there. I don't know that that's gonna happen, but it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility that it might happen.
Right.
Then we wouldn't do that. It would just be the feds getting
Right.
involved or
I
something.
was just asking because then we could clearly see the ones in Richland County that are.
Oh,
already
yeah, wouldn't that be great?
licensed.
Yeah.
'Cause we know there's 90 or 100 or how many.
Whatever there
already
is, yeah,
are. How many of them are truly already have the state license?
yeah.
And that would kind of help right
I,
there.
you know, that's
it's
one thing I
required.
think that I was asked to do a long time ago and I never did it. I could try and call DACAP and see if there's any way that they can give us a list. I've not heard of any way that you can get a list of active listings
Ones that are
licensed
currently
for your,
licensed
for your
our
county, but there must be a list, or they must have the list of. So I guess I'll try to see if I can find that, but by next time, I'll write a big note for myself so I don't forget it here.
And then my next question is you have this questionnaire for non-county zone townships
Oh,
and
yeah, we gotta talk about that.
municipalities.
Yep,
And so you had a bunch of questions.
yep, yeah,
that-
we'll talk about that. You want to talk about it now?
Well, I
Sure.
guess we hadn't yet, so that's.
Yep, that was my next thing I was
Okay,
gonna talk
sorry.
about.
Mhm.
Hold on, let me finish writing this. How many? Okay, I will try to do that. All right. So then, yeah, so last time I was asked also to send out, and I was gonna just send it out, but I thought I kind of wanted to bring it back and make sure that I had captured who all we want to send it to. And that I think these are the questions we were mostly interested in. So you had comments?
Well, it's Township of Rockbridge. You had a question mark at the bottom. I think it's Ithaca and Rockbridge are the two
That
that
are,
non-zoned,
that are
that
non-zoned?
are non-county zone. They do their own zoning. Yeah.
Okay, so it's Rockbridge. Yeah, I could not remember.
I think we should include them to say this is what we're working on so that they might want to be a part of it.
Yep, yeah, so I'm sending all of, the idea is we're gonna send this questionnaire to, for sure, to the ones that already have their own zoning.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know if that's true. Does Yuba have its own zoning, or do they just use county zoning? They have their own village zoning? You don't know? And then my second question was, should I send this out to all of the townships that are county zoned, just so that they may want to have input into the whole process? So send it to all townships plus the municipalities,
Yes.
Yes.
all of them, okay, all. Because at first I was thinking I was just gonna send it to the ones that are already have their own zoning, so that we can compare notes and make sure we're all kind of doing the same thing. But maybe the other townships that are county zoned would still want input into what we decide to do.
Is there a meeting that all the township people go to? I thought there was like a meeting that.
So the
Maybe-
towns meet, yeah, there is a towns meeting, wasn't it here last week? How often do they meet? Do you have any idea?
It's quarterly.
Quarterly? Okay, so we missed this one,
It doesn't get high attendance though.
really? I mean, we have 16 town chairs in Richland County. I assume it's mostly the chairs that show up, I would think.
I just thought that meeting would be potentially easier to try to address this potentially, where they're all there and can discuss it together. Potentially, especially if they already don't have an ordinance.
Right.
What are their interests? What do they think there would be an
So
interest?
what
in?
does not well attended mean, like numbers
Well, the one I went to, there were maybe, I think, 4 or 5.
out of 16?
And I would say, sure, bring it to a meeting, but mail it too. Do both.
Right. Okay. All right. Anything else on that item?
And the only other question I have is then, one of the questions you ask about is if they've had any issues as far as short-term rentals. I guess the
Mhm.
question is, have we already?
I
mean,
said,
it's
have you
the-
had any issues related to short-term raised at a meeting or conveyed to you by citizens?
Right, and I'm asking, have we already? Has
Oh.
the police been called because there's an issue at a short-term?
Yeah, we have no idea.
Yeah.
We haven't heard.
I'm just wondering, is that some information we could get for next time as well, so as long as we'll be discussing.
Oh,
things
so you
that-
want to know if law enforcement has responded to that? Well, I guess that's an easy enough question.
Mhm.
I'll ask the sheriff.
And if so, what were the issues, just so maybe we can address those if we need to in our ordinance.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I just had asked if our law enforcement for the county had had any issues, had to respond to a short-term rental because of some issue, a disagreement or an issue there with maybe potentially the neighbors or
Whatever,
whatever it was.
yeah.
Question, but your mic, please. Meeting. Because they have a unique situation in Little Rock. They're actually contracted with the county for law enforcement. And when the county officer is reported for work there, they actually use the county police department squad car. But the ordinances that he enforces are the villages of Lone Rock, but not the counties.
Okay.
So, so I don't know, did that answer your question? Basically how that works, because like you said, they're on the payroll for Lone Rock, but they enforce their ordinances, but their evidence room is here in Richland Center, and the village costs them more money, but they do have the protection of the county.
I think that's off topic.
What's that?
I think
Yeah,
that's off
I
topic.
was not wondering what because Village of Lone Rock is on this list. I was talking about basically everywhere else except these. So all the townships or all the area of the county that the county would go to, that there would be short-term rentals. Have there been any issues currently? But where the police needed to be called?
Sure.
Oh, the sheriff, yeah. I can find out. I mean, I'll ask. Yeah. But Mr. Carroll?
One last thing.
Yep.
I mentioned this in another meeting, and maybe it can be a separate issue, but the hip camp type arrangements, we might want to at least do a little homework on that. It's
What kind of homework?
to know whether we need this to do anything about it. I mean, maybe we ignore it, or maybe it needs some attention too. I just don't know. I know I checked, and there's, at least on the Hip Camp website, there's 4 or 5 in Richland County.
Don't we have do you have zoning regulations for camping, like a definition of camping, or no?
Yes, there is definition for camping. There is campgrounds, but
How many campgrounds do we have? 2?
2 for sure. There's one that's questionable.
There's one down at Gotham, right?
Mhm.
And then there's the one on Alpha A.
Mhm.
And then are you talking about the one out on F?
Right, but this is like the Airbnb equivalent of a
I know,
hotel.
yeah.
So I'm just asking.
Well, I mean, so you're saying, would people that are on hip camp, do you know if people who are in hip camp are required to have a DAT cap?
I doubt
I don't
it.
know what
I doubt it.
yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
So if they're not required to have DAT cap, should we care or do we care?
I'm not familiar with what you're even discussing.
So hip camp is like, it's the same thing as Airbnb, but it's for very rustic accommodations. So it's like, it might be a camper with no bathroom, or I've seen sheds.
Oh,
or
There are some
garden
that's
sheds turned into
literally an
rustic,
open lot, and you set your tent up.
and they can be that as well. So why is it not a campground? Like, why are they just not a campground?
because it's a short term, well, I guess.
So is a
campground as
campground,
well,
though.
I guess that is too, but.
Maybe they're trying to avoid, because the state also does the state have rules on camping? Or, oh, look at that, look what you
Yes,
just brought up.
because like, we have, county
Thank you,
has,
John.
we have a permit out at Pier Park. We have a camping
Water
permit.
tested, right?
Yeah, we have to have water tested. I know they have one at the fairgrounds. If we open
Oh, I
up,
forgot about the fairgrounds as a campground.
and then
Yeah.
if we open up Viola Park,
Mhm.
then we have to have a
The
permit for
water
that one.
tested,
And the
which
water
is why we replaced the well,
Correct.
correct? So that we could pass a water test. I don't know the answer to that question, and I guess you're probably right, but it feels a little bit separate because there's a whole different. I mean, if they're not required to have a DAT cap license, like a campground is not required to have a DAT cap license? It is supposed to.
We're supposed to, like the one out
Okay.
at Rockbridge is
Okay,
10
You want me to do the
campsites.
homework on that one?
would you
We
please?
have to have
That'd
a
be
permit
great,
for the
thank
10.
you.
There's different things, but we got like 1 to 10, there's 1 to 25.
Oh, how many spots you have dictates how in-depth the
But it's like
licensing.
$175 is what we have to pay, the county pays.
Okay, all right.
Maybe that's the difference because these are probably just like one campsite.
Yeah.
A lot of these.
The
But
hip stamp
it shouldn't
ones?
matter because it's,
It says 1 to 25?
mm-hmm.
Okay.
How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8?
11. Say one of 11.
Oh, extra marketing.
Interesting. Huh, all right. Oofta, okay, well, yeah, we might as well get the information while we're tackling this. Let's make sure we get everything figured out and have information on all of it while we're doing it. Okay. Is there anything else? So I really think we're to the point where we need our legal person to give us input and tell us, or give us
Yeah.
advice. Supervisor Gentis, go ahead.
Well, we were gonna talk about resorts too, and also, I
Resort.
forgot the name, but where they have the motorcycles up on hill, that's a huge camping area.
Talking about Bunker Hill.
Yeah.
Bunker Hill.
Don't forget, that's huge.
Well, let's wait till we have our legal counsel here and we'll
Yeah.
see how he defines things and what he thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they get a large gathering.
Permit
It's once a year that they do that.
for a
if
few
that's
days.
What they do.
Yeah. Yeah. And they do get the permit because it comes through public safety.
Yes.
That permit does.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I guess since you keep to be the one that sort of got designated as the SDR, do you have any, I guess I would be interested to hear any comments from you as far as, I'm sure you're not thrilled with the idea of having to do yet one more permit, but what we're talking about, do you have anything you'd like to say as far as the direction we're headed?
No, I mean, nothing right now. I mean, whatever the state is what it is. And then it's kind of on a case by case basis where I'll be like looking at each year, things that you add for the good neighbor policies to see if they're somehow onerous.
Something that seems off out of line?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was waiting to see, but I don't have any problems. No.
Okay.
We didn't even really necessarily discuss a permit required yet, did we? I mean, we
No, and we-
mentioned it, but we haven't made a decision either way.
We haven't, nope. No, and as far as the cost of that, we can set the cost of that. We can decide all of those things. So I think getting our legal counsel in here will help us focus in and really make some determinations on exactly what way we want to go. So, all right. All right, moving on. That brings us to the Dark Skies Initiative. So, I sent information. Oh, is he here? Oh, hello. Hiding behind Clint. I didn't even see him. You can come sit at the table if you'd like. So he sent information to Steve, which I then just took and kind of turned it into a trifold, which I brought, if you want to see how it works out. The images are not, these are just images I pulled from the internet, and they're not high quality, which is why they don't print very well. Obviously, we would want to, but this was something that I literally just was playing around with. I have no set. I will not be offended if we would like to change this extensively, to put it just, but this was, but this was all of the information that he sent. I think I incorporated all of it. Did you see the brochure?
No,
Oh,
I like it better than mine.
well, I thought a trifold is easier just because I know that in their office, they have trifold ones for other things. And so that was why I thought it might be easiest. And I used all the only thing I added was a quote that I found on, you can, pass it to him. So I think this would be very simple to print, and then anytime we get a building permit application, it could just go with the application so that they can, when they're talking to their contractors and stuff, it could be included. It can also be online. I think we have talked about, and maybe John, this might be a question for you. How hard would it be? So I've been to other counties, and I think Mike and Kathy brought it up too, where they have like all their informational brochures as PDFs in one place on their website. Is that something that we can we can do, because we have a couple brochures we've made for like Ash Creek and you know, instead of having to dig through every single department and go through, sometimes it's nice to just have those.
I think that's a long-term goal.
Is it?
Getting a website.
I know our website's probably at capacity as far as how much information it can contain, but that was kind of the idea, is that not only can we give it out when people are doing applications, but then we can also have it on the website for information. So one question I had, he also provided us with a kind of a PowerPoint that he has done, and I wondered about what enthusiasm this group has for trying to organize some kind of educational meeting. So like when we were trying to get people interested in the well study and when well water was a big hot topic, I couldn't believe the response we got. We did like 4 presentations, and there was a lot of enthusiasm. So, I mean, Richland County, and I did a Fair Maps one, and Richland County residents showed up in droves. So I feel like this is one of those topics that people are interested in. They just don't really know or understand it necessarily. So I wondered 2 things. One, do we want to try to get on the radio and talk about it and just inform people? Or 2, do we want to try to organize any kind of, like we did one, where was the first one? Where was the one we did in Richland Center? What building was that in? Was it in that old church over on? Can't remember. I know I talked to a lot of people that day. Anyway, I just am bringing it up as is that something that this committee would like to drive and, you know, get it going? Or do we want to just start here with just providing this information on our website? And when people do building permits, where do we want to go with this dark skies? Do we want to talk about doing any kind of, I hate to use the word ordinance, but do we want, I mean, how far do we want to go with this? What is everyone's appetite right now for this?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Yeah. I think just the trifold's not enough. I'm just not sure what other ways of trying to get the word out, get awareness raised.
Well, education, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say though that people are probably a lot more personally concerned about the quality of their water, the safety of the water than
They
they are some photons up in the sky. So I don't know what kind of turnout you get in an event.
Well, so what about trying to get something on the radio?
Yeah, that would be a lot easier.
So I guess we should ask you, how did you get people excited about doing this on the KVR?
It's been an idea for many years, even before I was in the area. It's just a big lift to get the designation, which we've been working on to get that designation now for 2 years. And we're still not there. But yeah, how do people get excited about it? Frankly, what usually happens is a neighbor of theirs puts a light fixture in that they find offensive.
Which is how this discussion started.
So that's
because that's exactly what
the
happened
most-
here. We had a person very annoyed with a light that got put up on a neighboring property.
And that's usually what it takes. But I do think that because of, as I said in that, what I sent you, the proliferation of these very bright LED fixtures, especially in rural areas, you notice them, right? More and more people are noticing those. And when I've talked to, like electricians I talked to 2 weeks ago up in Wisconsin Rapids, were the same way. They're like, you know, yeah, my neighbor put one up, or they just built a new building, you know, a block from my house, and I can see it from my house.
Has anyone been in Viola lately? That new gas station?
Yeah,
Holy cow,
It's
that new
awful.
gas station is just like lit up like an airport.
it's awful. And
Couldn't believe. In Viola, the new gas station that's on this side of the river, it's so bright. I feel so bad for those people that live across the road from it.
Sure. I live 5 miles from there. All of a sudden now at night, there's a glow that didn't used to be.
I know. If I was people in Viola, I would be just not a happy camper.
and
Yeah.
and just, I mean, that is a commercial installation, and so it's required to comply with those.
That paragraph that's
That
in the
paragraph
green.
talks about dimming lights and
Sure.
shut off for certain things. So it has to be enforced for it to happen, right?
Who does the enforcement?
Nobody statewide. It'd be somebody, whoever the local authority having jurisdiction is that issued the permit. So whoever that is, I don't know who.
We
that is,
don't,
Viola.
so Richland County is on the other side of you have to go across the bridge and into Viola before you get, so I'm talking about 131, coming from the school. That new station is in Burnett.
County. So yeah, I assume that's. who
It's
issued it.
I mean, I've not seen something so lit up, and I just can't even believe it.
That's becoming more and more common. It's not going to be uncommon
Wow.
because the LED sources are so bright
Yeah.
and they're cheap.
So how are you getting, because are you doing property owners around KVR or only on the KVR? You're changing
No,
lights?
well, part of the application is education, and I'm doing it anyway just because I think it's important. But yeah, just I started by contacting all the large businesses. We've done a couple of interviews, one radio interview, three radio interviews. Now I've done one, an article in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, but presentations to things like the electrical contractors, a few other.
And how did you get in front of electrical like, do they gather somewhere?
Yeah,
A
right.
bar or
Yeah.
what? Like,
underground in a nest somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, there's an association and they gather once a year for a conference, and I had a connection to somebody in that group and was asked to do that. So yeah, it was just
because that does seem, because the electrical contractors are the ones on the ground. Like when someone's deciding to put a fixture up, they can actually have influence as to, here's some options. Then did you know that?
right. So and that's just one subset of all the electrical contractors, even in this area, right? It wasn't all of them by any stretch of the imagination, just a small set of them. So yeah, the more groups like that I can get in front of, the better.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
Mr. Carroll.
I think another avenue would be contacting the utilities. Quite often, utilities have a default fixture that they would have if they need to put lights up, and maybe, I don't know, a direct contact with all the utilities that
Right.
Have
So what
covered
I'm
here.
trying to figure out though is, what is our role in this? Like, are we as a committee going to contact utility companies? I mean, so what I'm trying to figure out is, what is, as a committee, what are we looking to accomplish and how would we go about doing that?
I think it first needs to start with education, of course. The brochure is great, but I also think the morning show would be a good thing.
Yeah, and who would like to go on the morning show? I mean, I guess we could have him just go on the morning show, but I think we want to tie it to the county too, that we think that this is an important, that our committee thinks this is an important.
The other place I was thinking too was the tourism area, because obviously we could hopefully get them to be talking about dark skies and telling the places in the county that are dark skies areas, so that would be a way to promote tourism.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
to the
that we're
area.
ever going to get designated because it's really tough, as he can attest
Isn't there
to.
designated areas in the county?
No.
Not the kind I'm
Not
talking about,
official.
not international dark sky
Not official.
designated, right?
I thought there was a couple areas that were officially.
No,
Okay.
there's one by me that is pretty dark, and it's like, if you, like, the people who are into the dark sky stuff know, like, areas where it's close or it's pretty
Okay.
dark, but they're not
Okay,
official.
so
But I do think, you know, a multifaceted approach to it would help, right? If there's the thought that you can focus on some tourism benefits by having some areas that are dark, even if they aren't declared that way.
Right.
If you can talk to people that are getting building permits, if we can get in front of contractors, if you can get on the morning show, you get enough people thinking about it and talking about it, that it starts to, you know,
Snowball. right?
snowball, right?
Mr. McGuire, did you have a comment? Make sure you use the mic. Sorry.
Yeah, so it may be a due cost process. In other words, you're gonna have a complaint, and who are they gonna complain to? They can't complain to the county board, or
Right.
probably the police department then could pass it on to the county board. But I think you're gonna have a complaint first.
Well, I mean, we actually did have a complaint, and we decided that we didn't have the authority to do anything about it because we don't have any ordinances about light trespass. So it didn't really, we couldn't really do anything. We didn't have any ground to stand on because we don't have a light trespass ordinance or anything else. And I guess that is one of my questions. Is that something we want to start thinking about? But I don't know. I feel like education is definitely the place to start,
I
and
agree.
passing the word. And
I have something.
okay, hold on one second. Talk into your mic so she knows you're talking. Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I agree with you about the education. I was just thinking of another way to do that. We used to do a night walk to see what was safe in the community, different things. So I think that if we have an evening meeting, it should be in the summer outdoors at night, or in the fall or spring, because that's when you actually see the lights. And I can think of a couple places that have way too many lights in town. I don't know if they'd like us to meet, but we can meet across, just so people all at once start becoming aware of when it's overkill and too much or something. So I think night walks are important.
You know, and one thing I'm really interested in, so you were saying that, that like, you made the comment that, motion detector lights are just as effective from a security standpoint as ones that are on all the time. Is there data and is there other studies that we can actually reference other than it just being an anecdotal, I think that this is true kind of thing?
There is something referenced on the IDA website, and I
Okay.
can't remember, it was a federal organization that did the analysis, so I can dig that up for you.
Yeah, I mean, I always think anytime we're talking about, you know, when you make a statement like, well, it's just as effective, well, then let's back it up with some data. Where?
I wanted to ask, is there any intellectual data out there, any studies being done by the intellectual field that this is harmful, and then, because if it starts there,
Yep.
then it can go down to some sort of law enforcement or county enforcement, that sort of thing.
Like a health ordinance?
Yeah, you know, everybody needs a big brother to move on down. You know, we need the big brother at these universities, the intellectual studies, that's where it starts.
There have been a number of studies. One of the ones that came out about 7 years ago was the American Medical Association and the impact of blue light at night on human health. So that was a very in-depth study and generated, you know, quite a bit of publicity when it came out. And many of the lighting designers fought back against that study because they realized it was impacting what they love most, which is lighting. And I was a lighting designer. It's part of my job, not a full-time lighting designer. But there are other studies out there as well about impacts on wildlife, impacts on especially birds,
yeah.
insects. So yeah, it exists.
So I do think that if we are going to present this, those would be the kind of things we would want to talk about on the radio or whatever. And we could maybe do an article in the paper.
Melissa, I think that if we had not only, we need several of those intellectual studies that all agree, then we can move forward, not just one, we're gonna have to have several.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Mr. Carroll?
The light trespass or that concept of again being a good neighbor, maybe that's something else that Mr. Wendell might be able to help us with.
Well, he did. I mean, remember we had those long, in-depth conversations about what we were not able to do for the issue. So maybe we want to come at it from the other way of what legally are we allowed to? Because I don't know. Do you know if there's any kind of state statutes limiting our ability to limit the light trespass?
Don't quote me on this, but I was just told by an electrician 2 weeks ago that there is some sort of DOT statute on state highways for light trespass onto highways as far as a safety thing. Because he had to remove some fixtures from a building when the DOT came to him and told him that. Now, I haven't personally seen it. I haven't verified it yet. It's on my list to follow up on doing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I will tell you that in terms of ordinances, one of the most simple ordinances you could do that has no direct impact on dark sky, but that would help with the problem you discussed that brought me here really is just light trespass at the property line, right? And light trespass onto streets, public right of ways. And so those two things alone would not help, you know, by themselves with dark sky, but would help with the issue you're talking about and go some way towards the idea of controlling light.
Because if you're shining 1,000 feet, chances are you've got, if
Right.
you can aim it down a little more, you're at least going to take care of some
Right.
of the
And that's a
skies.
very simple form of an ordinance to do this, you know, doesn't seem too onerous. But
In this particular case, though, this individual did have Alliant come out and change their lighting or change the way it was pointing. So it was like they did make attempts and did what Alliant felt they could do. So I'm not sure what this particular person could have done differently. And their light is fairly close to Double J, so.
Pointed away
County.
from Double J, though. Mostly it's pointed.
Yeah,
on the
I
back
think
side
it
of that
is.
pole.
It's but it's on the backside of the pole.
Yeah,
correct.
that's not on the agenda though, so we better be careful about talking about that. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we definitely have interest in this committee pursuing this topic, that we for sure want to figure out ways to educate. So I don't know, is someone doing the morning show now that Ron Fruit?
Yeah.
Phil Nee.
Phil Nee?
Phil Nee.
Okay. I don't know how, like, do we want, is that something that you're interested in doing?
I don't know what it is, but anyway,
So it's an interview on the radio.
I've done, it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's usually a little less than an hour, 45 minutes or so, and the facilitators ask questions, and then you talk back and forth. I mean, it was always done by Ron Fruit for a very long time, and now he just retired. So it's so I haven't even listened to the morning show since he took over. I mean, I don't listen.
If you go to the WRCO website, there's recordings of previous ones so that you could listen to one and see what
Get an
type
idea.
of format it is,
Okay.
get an idea.
Yeah, I did an interview just like that with one of the talk shows out of La Crosse a few months ago. So-
Because that's going to go a long way. Because I know that a lot of my neighbors who are out in the farms with giant yard lights listen to WRCO. I mean,
Yeah.
like I keep saying, I keep ready every time we have this conversation. I'm like, I gotta call an electrician and change our light out in our yard because it's definitely bad. I can't. It doesn't turn off. It doesn't have a way to turn it off.
Furnished by the utility?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was mentioning
Well, I don't know if
earlier
it's
about
furnished by.
talking to
I don't know.
utilities.
I mean, it's just up. It's an old farm light up on our pole, and
It's
it's
the utilities.
It most
there's
likely,
no flip switch that I can see anywhere.
yeah, in those cases, most of those are included as a cost in your bill. You pay for a yard light charge.
Yeah.
So that's, they own it, they maintain it, you pay for it that way.
So can I make them change it to a different fixture?
Um,
Well, I'm willing to pay though. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's off topic as well.
Yeah.
So,
I have one last thing. What
Yes.
about streetlights? So just informing or educating the city, the townships.
Oh, do we
all of
wanna-
them
well, we could share
that would
this
be
brochure.
replacing- That would be replacing streetlights so that they would be replacing them with ones that would be,
I mean, we could
Yeah.
definitely share the brochure with the townships, and the municipalities. Just to get their just to pique their interest, hopefully. I mean,
because for them, that it really would apply for if there was any questions or issues in the township, but for them purchasing
right.
streetlights.
Yeah, because the county doesn't actually own any streetlights, do we? Does the county own any streetlights? We don't maintain any roads with streetlights on them, right? I mean, we have buildings with lights on them that we could talk about. I mean, maybe, do we have outside lights on?
Like the county highway shop.
Well,
road,
that's-
there's Pine-
I was just gonna suggest, any
Fairgrounds.
place start would be in all the county-owned buildings.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. We should actually, maybe we should go to a Public Works meeting. Is anybody here on Public Works? All right. You guys want to bring this to Public Works? And get it added to the, can we,
From Thursday, week from this Thursday, so. Oh, is it this Thursday?
And that,
The other one committee would be like recycling.
Fair and recycling would be the other one. Anyone here on fair and recycling?
And Pine Valley, I mean, the HHS, are they responsible for the Pine
But
Valley
Public Works,
building?
is Public Works now responsible for all our buildings?
Mm-mm.
No, just
Not currently, I think they're trying to,
rope that into.
yeah.
I guess for the fair parks and recycling, just let me know what you want to talk about. And then I go to those committee meetings, so I could get it to Carla. She does the agenda.
Okay, so I'm gonna put you on the spot. I heard you say that you consult for free.
I do. Yep.
So would you be willing to evaluate our county buildings and tell us, well, because obviously cost is gonna be an issue, because we're struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
But would you be willing to evaluate all of is that appropriate to have someone evaluate our buildings and just tell us where we should be most concerned and what we should, like, what would you change? Mr. Langry?
Yeah, we need to model what we're.
Right, yeah, no, I didn't even think of that.
Well, and I doubt we would like run out and try to make all these changes. It would just be if we needed to make a replacement, we should be considering his recommendations.
Well, but also if there's some that are really bad, could we just change a light bulb? Because one of the things you were talking about was if you just use a different, whatever, you
Color
call it, warm,
temperature, there's a
the
few-
warm or whatever.
Yeah, a few factors. Color temperature is one of them, right? Shielding or full cutoff is another.
Right.
And then lumen output is the third big thing. So it could be any one of those three or a combination of any two of the three or whatever it could be for a certain situation. But yeah, I mean, if it's okay with the county, I'm happy to do that kind of work. That's what I'm.
So I'm asking Mr. Langry, is it okay for me to ask him to do that, or what kind of process do we have to go through to do this.
It sounds like the price is right. The other aspect.
And the
of it
expertise
just-
is really amazing.
Yeah, if we have a handshake agreement, the only other things would be liabilities then if, I don't know if you have your own like LLC and workers' comp and those types of things that are in place that you would have to worry about, but I don't know if that's any marginal difference than anybody else of the citizen capacity walking around our
Buildings.
I mean,
building.
you don't have to climb on anything, you just have to look at them in the dark and see whether they're bad, essentially.
The other aspects of it is I know like our, certainly communicating with departments so that you have the sheriff's department coming out to investigate.
There's a creeper staring at
yeah,
all our buildings at night.
suspect that's walking around checking out our county garages at evening. So that would be the other part, is coordination.
Yeah, so I'm certainly willing to do that. I will say in terms of, I do have a company with liability insurance. I don't have workman's comp because I'm a sole employee of that company. And the only reason I started the company was to do work for private places that aren't a municipality or a nonprofit. 'Cause I've done a lot of volunteer work for municipalities, a municipality, and a lot of nonprofits as an electrician, and always was covered prior under their liability, right? So I don't have a problem with doing that, what we're talking about here on my own. Workman's comp, I'd have no idea how that would be involved, honestly. I've never thought about workman's comp, but
Okay. Mr. McGuire.
Most of you are probably aware of the fact that we're getting a new bridge in Lone Rock, about a 2.5-year project. And the state of Wisconsin, without any approval from the village board, has, and at the tail end of that project, when the bridge is done, from the Wisconsin River all the way to Highway 14, State Highway 130, they are going to, I would imagine as part of the original cost of the bridge, they're going to install all new lights from the one end of Main Street all the way up to Highway 14. And these lights are supposed to be so powerful that they're located such on your main drag that they actually light back into your side streets. Supposedly this is to reduce crime, dark areas where crimes could be committed. That's the idea behind it. But anyway, I'm curious. I may have to go to another village board down there and find out what type of lights are going to be brought in there, if they're so powerful to do.
It sounds like
not
a
only
terrible
light
idea.
the main drag, but to light all the side streets
That
too.
sounds terrible.
It does sound terrible. There's second story apartment buildings all the way along that.
Yeah.
and DOT does have their own standards for roadway lighting on state highways. And it's on my list to try and get in front of them as well and have some influence on what they choose, but
Interesting.
it's,
Okay. So I guess, would you mind doing that evaluation and then bringing it back to us?
no, if you can give me a list of the buildings and where they are, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Mr. Linger, can you, or who should I be asking for that? I mean, is there someone else though that I could, instead of you, so you don't have to do it? Cheryl, okay, all right. Okay, all right, I think we need to move on. We have quite a bit of ways to go here. Yeah, we have quite a ways to go here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I do have one question about the brochure. Did anyone have any issues or comments or anything that they want changed, or formatting, pictures, something else I should include?
You've already mentioned the getting some better
Resolution.
images.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I saw.
Okay, all right. All right. So that brings us to the item number 10, 2023 Land Conservation Work Plan.
Okay, every year I have to provide a work plan, what we know we're going to be doing for
Yep.
this year. And then some, I don't say called pie in the sky, but some
Aspirations?
aspirations. There we go. Good word. And so this is a format they wanted in. And while we were sitting there, and you guys were talking about the dark skies, I thought of one more to add under livestock, which is update manure storage ordinance, and then performance measure would be completed. Because I need to do that. It's been a while since it's been done. And I've started it and haven't gotten it quite finished yet. But these are the things we kind of know what's going to happen, plus a few, additional, I don't want to go step by step, but if you guys, after looking at the land and water plan, some other things.
Yeah, I think I would like for next month This is great. I mean, these are a lot of things that we've consistently been doing every year. I think what I'd like to do is go and look at our newly approved land and water plan and just see as a committee if there are some things that we haven't tackled in a while that we think are priorities. I mean, we don't want to dump everything, you know, we don't want to try to do too much, but I'd like to really focus in on a few new things. Because a lot of these you do every year just because they're things we need to do every year and we have to do them every year. And did you think that you felt like you added anything that you hadn't really done in the past other than the manure storage, which that's not a minor thing. That's going to be a big headache.
We've added I've added some things for the invasive species.
Is that will that fulfill our grant
Yes.
stuff as well?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
And then, I've added, this stuff about, Boaz, I work with Boaz Sanitary District.
To do the phosphorus trading or?
Yes.
Okay.
I have to turn this in by the 17th.
You can turn this in. What I'm saying is we may modify it as far as internally for your own kind of your.
That's great. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's why, this is what, like I said, this is, and then I'm also working on every year, by 15th of April, I have to send what we did, what we've accomplished to the state.
Right.
So if there's things that we've added in and you say, hey, you know, these were not in our work plan, but hey, we've done this and this and this, and that's.
Yeah, so the DNR requires this annual work plan it's
actually DACAP.
Or DACAP.
Department of Ag.
Yeah, right, sorry. Which is also where they also look at our land and water.
Correct.
And the land and water board is attached to DACAP, right?
Yes.
Are they all together? Yeah.
And some of the things for the construction practices, the boots on the ground stuff, Derek is just getting his wheels going and he's contacting people. So there's probably gonna be more projects he's gonna be working on, but at this point in time, he wasn't sure and we didn't put some of those in.
Where is he at as far as his ability to do things alone? Because he still has to get approval.
He'll have to get approval for quite a while.
For quite a while.
He's starting to feel more confident. He can do some projects, go out and survey, do the work, and then.
Have it checked by the.
Correct. He's gonna have to have them, because he doesn't have job approval, he's gonna have to have them checked.
Right, and that's DACAP that has the
Correct.
job approval, right?
Correct.
Okay. But he's doing well?
Yes, and after the conference, he felt.
I was glad to see him there. I think it's a great place.
Getting a little more confident. I think that's part of it, is just, you know, more confident in what he can do.
Right. Okay. So do you need approval from us?
No, I
A
just
motion? You just wanted to present it?
Yep.
Okay.
And like I said, this is like a benchmark, but like I said, during the year, if you look at the plan, you say, hey, maybe we should be working on this, that's.
Yeah, so why don't
don't
you
mind.
do for next month, why don't you put on the agenda 2023 or the latest land and water plan, what is it, 23 through 33 or whatever?
Yeah, and it was on the, it's on the.
I would like the committee to just read it over and just look and see if there are things in there that you think that you'd like to see them focus on for this next year. Not a ton of stuff, just like if you have a major, what would your priorities be? If you looked at everything in that plan, what do you think would be a priority? And let's just see where we're at in that. Okay. That brings us to the joint allocation grant.
And what I put on your iPad was the actual resolution. And what we're asking for is not what we're going to get. But the staffing grant would be the 170 and 30, or 170 and 50%. If we got all of that money, that would be $172,899. And one thing I had to ask, because we have to fill out what was paid in 2022, because Kenny left,
Right.
and Derek started late.
There was a gap, yeah.
And so I asked that question, and they said, estimate what, if he had been working there the whole year at that salary, what would it have been? So that's
That's
what I
good,
used.
because otherwise we would have lost out, because there was that
Correct.
that big chunk of time where he wasn't there, or no one was there.
So, and then you go down to you have what's called the bond funds. And I asked for 75,000. This year we're getting a little over 50,000, but if you don't ask for it, you don't get it. And that's the projects that Derek works on.
So like the cost sharing on waterways and
Dams, diversions.
and, yeah, and all those things.
Stream bank, yeah, that all comes, that's that money. And well abandonments.
Right.
Well decommissioning. And then the other one is the it's called seg money, segregated money. That would be for nutrient management planning, but I found out that we can use half of that. Somebody's got a nutrient management plan and they want to do cover crops, we can cost share.
They did change that?
They
So you
did
could do
change
some
that, so-
implementation?
So right now,
Okay.
it's down as nutrient management, but we may be able to do like,
Some implementation, not just making the plan.
but they have to have the nutrient management plan done to get this cost sharing.
Okay.
So I'm having Kent look at the list of people that have nutrient management plans, what's the next step that they could do.
If there's something they could implement with the
Cover
extra
crops. So
money.
this would be not this year, this is all for 2024.
So these are grants that we apply for every year. And every year we get,
I think this year's 100, they say 121,000, 120.
for the staffing, so
Yeah.
these funds support staff and it supports projects that they do. And it comes from DACAP every year.
So my question is at the second paragraph, it references 362,899. And then down below in the paragraph above where you separated them, it's 253,092.
I added it wrong.
Should those match?
They should match.
They should match, yeah, you're
Okay,
right.
I will, before I send it,
To county board, you'll correct it.
I will, re-add. Sorry, thank you. That's no problem. That's why I brought it here first. But I have, yeah.
All right, perfect. All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve applying for these grants that we apply for every single year.
I'll make a motion that we apply for those grants as noted.
With the correction of the
With the correction.
dollar funded. Yeah. All right, a motion is second. Any further discussion? Mr. Carroll?
I didn't catch which number's correct.
I think it's
The
the,
second one, isn't it?
Yeah, those
Well,
numbers,
let's
the
see.
numbers I have down under the before they're
172.
resolved are the ones that are on the grant.
Okay, got it, thanks.
I just screwed up.
I don't know if either of them are the right number. I think you just make sure the numbers add up.
I will make sure the numbers add up.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, any other question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, please apply for those staffing grants. We definitely want that money going for our staff. All right, item number 12, filling the 7th committee member slot. This was the other thing that I asked Mr. Wendell, and he is going to bring his thoughts to the next meeting.
And at the business meeting of the conference, they talked about this. And they are working with, Wisconsin Land and Water is working with,
Senator Ballwig,
yeah,
sounds like.
or, yeah, to see if they can make subtle changes to change it from the FSA.
In the
number-
statutes,
In statutes
Yeah.
to an
a farm rep.
an ag rep.
Mhm.
But the ag rep definition would be what is in Department of Ag rules for, was considered ag.
So it would be defined for us, which I think is actually good.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that up. That was up. So they're working on it and, that's where
They're hoping that they'll just change the statute to get rid of the FSA word and put farm agricultural representative, and then they have the and
As
tie it to
defined
the
by
as
Department-
defined by that, yeah.
Yep.
So,
So what do we do in the meantime?
well, we'll ask Mr. Wendell what he thinks we should do in the meantime, because it could take quite a bit longer to get
Correct.
that figured out. So, okay. So that brings us to item number 13, Assistant Zoning Administrator Sanitarian position.
That went into the paper this last week. So far, I've got 2 applications. It's came in.
That's good.
I can't hear.
What?
I cannot hear.
Oh. You gotta shout, Mike, apparently. You gotta be loud like me.
So we've got 2 applications that came in. And both of them don't have any experience in pouts, no experience in soil testing, no experience in ordinance.
Okay.
What do they have experience with?
Truck driving. They both have CDLs.
Is that a
So,
requirement of the position?
No.
What was I can't hear his answers.
She asked what experience did they have, and he said they had CDLs. So how many weeks have we advertised?
It will be advertised and the deadline date was March 17th. believe.
So it's going to continue to be advertised, and then the applications should be in by March 17th.
Correct.
Okay. And if we don't get subsequent, if you don't feel like we've gotten enough of a pool to choose from, are we going to extend? Does he have the authority to extend the advertising, Mr. Clinton? Mr. Clinton. Mr. Langrick?
Yes, department heads have authority. to-
Okay, so he doesn't have to come back to us. He can go ahead and if you don't like, because I don't want to wait another month if you don't get a big enough pool. And where did you advertise? In the paper? Anywhere else?
In the paper, Indeed, it's on the website.
Okay. Is there any other place? I mean, Indeed's a good one for sure. And having it on the website, I think is good. And the paper. Which paper? The Observer?
Correct.
Is that our typical where we advertise? Okay. I'm just gonna, so I was in a meeting with Southwest Regional Planning, and they have an open GIS position, and they had double digit. I can't remember the exact number, but I feel like it was something like 25 applicants for their GIS position. And all I could think is, well, why did we get none? I don't know if are they paying a lot more? I was gonna ask Troy, actually,
I heard that from Troy this morning.
right? How many was it?
Out to him. I'm not sure.
It was
on
a
the
big
He said that
number.
They had multiple people applying.
Big number.
Where would that position be?
Platteville. Their offices are located in Platteville.
Yeah, and I think they ended up getting one of their positions is filled by a person that experience, I think, working through Village of Boscobel perhaps, and it's also being courted by Beerbecker. I forget all the details, but they were able to recruit.
Yeah, like I was shocked. So I need
Can
to,
we get those resumes from them?
I know, like I feel like we need to find out. They can't be paying, they're a nonprofit. I mean, they can't be paying that much better than we are, but maybe they are.
I'll reach out to Director Maggie
Yeah,
to see
and
what.
just, like,
Well,
I
and
was
also where
floored.
they advertised. You know, did they do just,
That's a good question.
yeah,
That-
did
That's
they
an easy one.
advertise somewhere where we are not?
I don't know.
Yeah, but that would be a good question for him.
Salary range is 45 to 55.
And what would it be here? What did we advertise our GIS position at?
We also have the issue of POUTS training and certification.
Oh, so you think that turned off but now we've shifted that to this position, right? To the,
New position is the Assistant Zone Administrator Sanitation.
right. So now if we did do a GIS, it would be just straight GIS, correct?
Correct.
Maybe we'd have better luck. Well, let's fill this one first and then we'll, because we continue to use MSA for our GIS works. Okay, so well, hopefully we get more applicants. I mean, there's still it's another week and a half to get applicants. And I guess we'll see. Okay, that brings us to the GIS contract. So MSA is continuing. I assume we're still able to get everything done that we need to get done by using the MSA as our interim.
They have kept on going as they had originally done.
Okay. Did you want to talk on?
I can, if you'd like me to just mention, and Supervisor Carroll also joined in on some of these conversations. We're tasked with trying to map out the data flows on where all the information arrives at for edits to our GIS map or through the ARC map, and then how it gets out to all the different sources that are using those types of information. So this is very draftish. I coupled this while we were having discussion during our last meeting, but essentially we're asking to try to find the data flow of where it's at, the distribution list on who all gets notified when changes are made. We're looking also through this process to identify current questions, gaps, and inconsistencies, as you have to imagine that it's not just the GIS person that's handling information all the way from we need to change to it arriving out to dispatchers to grab. We also know that we have some cleanup efforts that we have to do as well as some geo validation. And then part of the entire process too is this is going to be a good exercise for us to, through understanding what that data flow looks like, we can try to enforce and institutionalize the behaviors through either policy or procedure type of language. So that all being said, the idea is to try to build a map that kind of looks like this is in a very drafty type of a fashion. It's going to get very big and a lot more complicated. But the idea is from left to right on, you have a request for an address or a change through the zoning office. It hits our GIS work source, our GIS, our work source GIS computer database. GIS updates are made, and then updates go out to email to all the different users, and then trying to map then what each individual user does with that. So example here, like on number 3, you have a property lister that's going to take the updates and then put it into the GCS system. There's going to be changes potentially in parcel splits and deed changes, and then there's automatic kind of a feedback push then that pushes that information that your property lister would back into your ArcView map. Now it gets, again, not knowing right now yet who all of our end users are and what information goes off there is part of the thing that we're trying to build. There's also interesting things too in the realm of GIS data where you have things that you'd be familiar with, like through Rapid SOS, the Spillman systems, all those different elements where it's not necessarily information coming directly out of our system, say for like Rapid SOS. That kind of comes down from the state, but we don't know for sure how they get their information locally to get to the state to come back and feed our dispatch center. So it's a very complicated thing. We're trying to track down all the end users again of this data and then understand what their processes are on their side of the house, because we do have different identified problems too with inconsistencies in the different informations that all come back to our end users. So I don't know if that really answered anything or just arrives at making more questions, but that's what we're trying to work through, Madam Chair.
So, right. So if you'll recall, we didn't feel like we could write an RFP for anyone to respond to about what our needs are for GIS until we figured out what this process or what he had up there, what that process is. And as I spoke about last month, with Clint, we made the executive decision to just go ahead and have MSA just figure that process out. So when do you think they'll kind of be done parsing this all out or have hopefully figured most of it out so that we could move forward with determining what our GIS needs are to complete the RFP?
I'm hoping to be at a 90% solution in April is kind of my
Okay.
goal on it. I don't know how reasonable or feasible that is, though, not knowing what each conversation is going to arrive at and
Right.
what farther gap or hole could be identified past that. At least with the mapping. Now, when we start talking about behaviors on policy and procedure to make sure whether it gets filled with an employee or it gets filled with a contract, to making sure on each left and right barrier what those things look like, that might be further down the road, but at least having a map is the goal.
Currently, we are paying MSA on time. So what they only charge us, well, they're not under contract, they're just they bill us for the hours worked, correct? That was my understanding.
Yes.
Okay. So committee, are we comfortable to continue as we are, getting our services just billed as, what they only bill us for the work that they do, that we ask them to do, until we can get this process figured out and then continue on with getting into contract if that's what we want to do?
Madam Chair,
Yep.
as long as we're receiving either progress
Itemized.
report or an itemized invoice on what they've accomplished with each, I would agree.
So do we know what kind of bills we're getting from them?
Yes, they've been itemized.
They've been itemized with like what they were working on for this many hours or whatever?
Correct.
Okay, good. Is that acceptable, Mr. Carroll? Okay. I feel like we're making progress, really good progress in figuring out how this is all going to work here. So if we can get that wrapped up though in April, that would be great, or at least mostly figured out. Okay. Any questions on that? That brings us to well testing. You want me to talk or you want?
I can kind of talk a little bit. Melissa and I talked between meetings. We both went to things on wells, and we kind of talked in between. And I don't know if we want to go and do more well testing, or we haven't. That's the thing that has to be decided. Or do we want to look at what we've got done and bring up maps and see, okay, where are we Stevens Point has a good mapping thing, and pull it up and see where the issues are, and maybe talk about where we want to concentrate efforts and what kind of efforts we want to concentrate there. Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, so when we started this a few years ago, we didn't really have a lot of, there was data in the well viewer up at Stevens Point, but it was sporadic and it had been taken over many, many years. And so we weren't really sure what our current situation is. And then we did the well testing where we tested 168 wells, something like that. And I think it'd be great if we could collect more information, but I think we have identified, and I don't think any of the areas were a big surprise to us, but it did help us really know where some of our issues are. So the question becomes, I'm not asking, what we said is we can't offer to pay for the testing like we did before because we don't have any funds for that. But what if we did the same thing we did last time is we did an outreach. And what if we just facilitated, so really it would just be my time or her time or whoever's volunteering to help people, like we could get the sample bottles in, we can coordinate the day, we can bring the samples up to Stevens Point, just making it super easy for people to test. Because right now it's a little bit of a hassle. You have to ask for the stuff, ask for those sample vials, and then you have to make sure that once you take the sample, you get and the samples have to arrive within ideally 24 hours of and so it's just a little bit of a hassle. And is there anything we can do to facilitate people testing their wells on their own? Because then we can go into the well viewer and we can get the information publicly through the well viewer site at Stevens Point. So there's that component. And then the next question is, do we actually want to start looking at the areas that we have issues in? So let's just, for example, bring up the sandy stuff that's over in Buena Vista and along the Wisconsin River in the south. Do we want to start talking about, whether we do educational campaigns? Not that farmers don't already know that their nitrates are going right in the water, but what as a committee do we want to try to do? And even this pulls in zoning as well. Land use, obviously, at some point, we're probably going to need to start talking about making sure we're making wise land use decisions in this county. And not putting nitrates right into the water or.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
To educate me here a little bit, because I've always lived in town, so I don't have a well. But what I'm getting at is, what's the process here when an average citizen wants to have their well tested? They suspect they have bad water or something. So what do? What's step one? Do they have to come to you, one of you two, or?
They just need to go and have their well tested, and they
An
can go.
independent,
There's many places you
But
can send it.
There's two that are the easiest two to know is there's one in Lancaster. And we have the information for there where they contact Lancaster.
Right.
And then there's the hygiene lab down in Madison. Those are the two that immediately popped my head, and I think you could go and find other ones, but those are the two closest ones.
They are. And the only downside to those labs is that there's no access to that information for anyone other than the homeowner. So as far as countywide, trying to make countywide decisions, when you go to the Stevens Point well viewer, you can click on your county, you can click on your township, and it will show you all the wells that were tested and what the values were, and give you a lot of data. It'll give you data on what the well situation is. Mr. Carroll.
If another round of well testing gets kicked off, I can help.
Okay.
I will as well.
So do you think, I think that's a pretty easy thing. It's pretty low. There is some staff time, obviously, but it's a pretty low, low input for us and a pretty good return on investment if we just facilitate. The homeowner would send a check with their sample. They would pay for it themselves. They would get the results, but then we could get the information off of the well viewer.
And I think what they did, like in Vernon County, when they paid for half of it, they wrote the check to the county, and then.
But I think we would just let them to write it directly.
No, he doesn't want all those individual checks. When we did the other ones,
there's some administrative.
But that's minor. We just have to keep track. But
yeah,
then they would send us a bill for how many tests were done. But they'd pay
There-
us.
yeah, it was passed through. It was, there was no
Correct.
cost to the direct cost to the county. Okay, well, we can start brainstorming like ideas of when we'd want to do it, and that would also require us probably going on the radio again and doing that kind of stuff.
Wouldn't it be good then to encourage people to do the testing through the same Stevens Point?
If
place
we're going to
versus-
facilitate it, it's going to be Stevens Point.
I know, but
Yeah.
I just mean otherwise, so.
They don't usually do, I don't think they usually do like individuals per se,
Stevens
like,
Point?
yeah,
Oh, yeah. You can call, you can go to their website
Okay.
and request a test kit,
okay.
and they'll
Sorry.
ship it to you, and then, yeah, they actually, yeah, you can do that individually.
Okay.
And many
Because I
people
didn't
do.
know that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
wouldn't it be good for the county to, if somebody calls your office and says, hey, how do I get my water tested? To be referencing to there, because then we can see that
I
data.
think we do in general. I think, doesn't Tammy?
No,
No?
we
No?
haven't, I didn't know they did individuals, so
Oh,
that's
no,
another
they do.
place.
Yeah.
So that's another place. We've
Yeah.
got a list of the places and we go from there.
The health department also gets calls because the health department, actually for people with young children, the health department, they can get free testing, but it's the state hygiene lab, which again, we don't get copies of results from that.
But if it's the same cost, I don't know if it is or not, but if it's the same cost.
It varies. It varies.
It would be
I think
beneficial.
last time it was like $55 for Stevens Point, but that's been a few years.
I haven't looked now to see if they've gone up. I'm sure they went up during COVID. Everything went up. Did you have a question? You're looking at me like.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't understand the background on why the data is not all shared.
I know. Wouldn't it be fabulous if there was a repository for all the data?
Hello?
Yeah, we've had lots of discussions about that, but there isn't. Stevens Point is the only entity that I know of that shares their information public. I mean, they don't put names in, so it's just a data point. It's just a well. I mean, you can zoom in and probably figure out what well it is, but it takes a lot of work to do that. The other thing that they brought up that I think would be very, very important and very, very helpful in us for thinking about how we want to talk about land use is well construction reports. So all of the well construction reports are available as PDFs on the DNR has a
Back to 1937.
down to 1937. You can look up every well that's been installed. They're PDFs though. And at some point it would be amazing because there's a lot of very, very good information about groundwater levels and depth to bedrock, all of these things that affect your quality of water. If we could get those entered into, I was thinking about it when I'm no longer like on the county board or something, I was thinking I would volunteer to enter those because I think that data would be very powerful and would help us make some really good decisions, but it would be a lot to enter all of that data. And I don't think staff has the capacity. I think that would not be, unless we got a summer intern, which I'd like to talk about volunteers, high school, trying to get high school kids interested in working at the county. Could we have interns or, could we do something where they could come in? Because I don't think, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I don't think that local kids in high school think that there are jobs here that they would be able to do or they'd be qualified to do. But if we get them interested when they're young, did you want to comment on that?
I cannot. It's not on the agenda, but it might be
Oh,
a
right,
really
I'm
good one
sorry.
for
Yeah.
a future agenda item.
That's true. I'm sorry, you're right.
If it was in specifics to well testing or something like that, perhaps we could.
Well, it's not well testing, it's well reports, is really how it came up, yeah. But anyway, so I guess we'll talk a little bit more and bring it back and decide when we want to do it and how we want to do it, and how we'll go about it exactly. All right, so that brings us to the 2022 Land and Resource Management Plan.
And I double
Madam
checked.
Chair?
and-
This is
Yeah.
Supervisor Turk. I have to jump off the meeting. I've got a couple things I have to wrap up for my workday here, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I sent the plan again to MIS to put on and they informed me it was on the website, but they just moved it so it's on the side.
Okay,
So it's on there.
the old plan.
No, the 2022.
Oh, the new plan, right. Oh, because we wanted, yeah, that was Julie's request to have
Yep,
that
and
placed on
so
the website.
It was on there before, but it was kind of harder to get to, so they made it easier to get to.
Nice,
Okay,
thank you.
I think on the land conservation.
Land
web?
Conservation website, it's over on our, by the tree sales. Yep.
Awesome. All right. So that brings us to 17, public comment. So if we have anyone from the public on, would anyone like to make public comment? All right. Future agenda items. I think we got a lot on our plate, but does anyone want to add anything else? No?
I liked your last thing about volunteers or interns.
Yeah, so we will make a note too to put intern slash volunteer slash something.
Put in interns slash volunteers.
High school kids, local kids. Okay. That would bring us to item number 19, closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parent 1, parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Performance evaluations of the zoning administrator and count conservationist, I think.
Oops,
meant
I
you
typed
county. Your account.
Definitely.
All right, so I think we need to clear the internet room.
Who stays?
So Linda Gentis would stay. And
Okay.
so are you Barb? Or are you
Yeah,
Barb?
Barb me.
Who's Barb? Is that your computers, John, or is that?
Probably Barb.
It was actually me.
Oh, okay.
But there's
So we just need Barb to leave. I'll give you a call. We'll touch base about it. Well, there's quite a few things from today. We'll touch base about. Clay Target League.
so the other Barb is Linda.
The other Barb is Linda.
Okay.
We don't go there no more.